Good afternoon everyone and welcome to the Rugby guitar competition, and we've got a selection of classical, electric and acoustics from all the year groups this afternoon. Delighted to welcome a very special adjudicator, Tim Pells, who's a very well respected performer, teacher and composer, and later on during the proceedings he's going to do a quick talk and demonstration for us, which is going to be fantastic. So anyway, we're going to start with the classical guitars, grade 1 to 3, moving on to the acoustics and electrics, and then we'll go through to the higher grades later. So we're going to start off with the classical grade 1 to 3 group.
and I'm helpless. Down for the count and I'm drowning in them. I've never been the type to try and grab the spotlight. We ride a rebel with some rebels on a hot night. Laughing at my sister as she dances in the room. And you walked in and the heart went boom. Trying to catch your eye from the side of the ballroom. Everybody's dancing and the band stopped volume. Right to the rhythm as we wind climb. By my sister whispering, oh, this one's mine. My sister made her way across the room to you. And I could never see what she gonna do. She grabs you by the arm and thinking I'm true. And you look back at me and suddenly you're helpless. Oh, those eyes, oh, helpless. I know why. I'm so into you. I am so into you. Say helpless, down for the count, and I'm drowning in them. 1 week later, and I'm frightened to let it light me. Am I like this better every letter that you write me? Laughing at my sister, she wants to call my headroom. 2 weeks later, in the living room, stressing. My father stone-faced while you're asking for his blessing. I'm dying inside as you whine and dine, and I'm trying not to cry, cause it's nothing that your mind can't do. My father makes his way across the room to you. I panic for a second, thinking we're through. But then he shakes your hand and says, be true. And you turn back to me, smiling and I'm helpless. He's mine, that boy is mine. Say helpless, down for the count, and I'm drowning in them. I look into your eyes and the sky's the limit. Helpless.
Thanks very much. Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's fine.
Now sit down if that's okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely
Is
fine.
that
Yeah.
one on camera there? Yep. Okay, thanks very much, everyone. This is really thrilling. There's so much in performance, you know, that to say outside of the lesson. You notice that when you're in performance, suddenly things that happened in your lessons don't seem quite the same. And sometimes advice that you've had, you forget. Sometimes you have to make up things that you hadn't done before because of a particular situation. So it's a very special situation, being in performance. And may I say, congratulations to all of you for doing it. Because if you don't take advantage, excuse me, of an opportunity to perform in a situation like this, which really does put the pressure on, you know. Okay, you're only performing for a dozen people and me, but at the same time, you could be performing for 100 people and me, or 1,000 people, and it wouldn't be much different, you know. Once you've got an audience, that's you're on it. So, there's things to say about everyone. I'm gonna go through and look at some general themes first. Things that I picked out of the whole sequence of performance related to the pieces, and I'll make comments about each particular piece. And then I'll announce the winners at the end. Miranda, just take it easy. You have to wait and find out here. I told her she might be a loser. Yeah, yes. So Miranda, if I start with you, there's a great sense of poise in your performance. It would have taken something to beat you, actually. So despite the fact that you were the only performer in your class, had there been some others, it would have been a strong performance. So because you had this strong sense of personality and poise, which was immediately evident. Now, all of us, notice the inclusive nature, I include myself in this, all of us have to get used to bonding with our audience. It's ever so hard to do for some people. For me, it's easy because I talk too much. So it's actually a question of shutting up rather than saying more for me, and it's always been the case. It's always been the case, I fear. We live and learn. But you know, you engaged the audience with the way you looked and the way you played on stage. You know, you seemed comfortable in the music, and that really matters. Now, it just happens, here's a freaky little thing, it happens that I'm a friend of Celso Machado, who wrote the piece that you played. And the reason for that is you might detect that my Suffolk accent is a little bit modified by my early life in Canada. In other words, some people say I have an accent. My friends in Canada think that I have an English accent, and I've only been in England for 48 years. So to me, I don't sound very English compared to you. But nevertheless, Celso Machado is a really interesting character because he's a Latin guitarist. And he's a very, very strong Latin guitarist. He plays the life out of the guitar on stage. Now I saw him, yeah, I've got time to talk, so I will. I told you I talk too much. I saw him in Vancouver when I was there on holiday one year. And the reason I went to see him play is because I was asked him to commission a piece for my quartet, the English Guitar Quartet. And we were hoping to get him to write one of our pieces. He was going through some domestic problems at the time. His wife had thrown him out. And so he was not in a state to commission at the time. He was living in the back of his car on a little island. But we got to know each other quite well, and he was a terrific laugh. And when he plays music, he just hits it so hard. I was shocked watching him play. And that sense of commitment and, carnival about the piece is what you have to communicate in this. Now, in actual fact, you did rather well at that, because there were some lovely moments of music in what you did. There was a lovely dynamic shift. People think the guitar without amplification is always very quiet. But you know what? It has its own sense of dynamic. It was much worse for the lute in its time, and for the harpsichord, where, of course, you don't really have a dynamic much at all, short of how you work the keys. But your guitar, even though it's a restricted dynamic range by comparison to one of these things, you used it really well. I loved it. There was a lovely dynamic shift in the repeat. You linked with the accompaniment, and may I say you had a wonderful accompanist, and you linked with that very, very smoothly, which was really nice. And when you got up high on the guitar, suddenly it opened up. Now that's the thing you want to do more. You want to open up that tone, even when you're low down in the low registers. And guitar, of course, is. Do you know that the guitar is an octave lower than it says? Do you all know that? Because if you play a note on guitar that's notated middle C, it's actually an octave below middle C is what you get. And so that's a very low note. The guitar is actually almost a bass instrument, really. And we read it off treble clef, but it's not. And so you have to take particular care with low register. And I know this because I'm the bass player in my quartet. So bass players always think that bass is more important. You'll find that in life. Talk to a cellist about orchestration, and the violins are always at fault. You had a lovely accompanying figure when you got it. When you were playing the chords as well. And the one thing I would say is, take your time in performance. Don't rush off stage. When you finish, and this is a general comment where I'm going to come back to in almost everybody. Take your time, finish the piece, finish off, and then just pause. There's a moment of silence. It's almost like the frame around a picture. And it's actually a really important moment, and this is what you get in this context that you don't get in your lesson. You don't perform to your teacher like it's an audience once you've had it. First you may do if you don't know the teacher. So there's some ideas for you on that, and some general applications for everybody within that. And of course, I think in this case, she's not the loser, she's the winner. So well done, Maria. Told you I talk too much. Please confirm how I may pronounce your name.
Jelly.
It is how you pronounce it. I was terribly worried it was like paella, and I was going to get it wrong, so I thought I'd better ask. Forgive me. Yeah, Pajelli, right. Okay, you played beautifully. It was a thrill for me to hear my own piece, and I tried not to let that bias me in my assessment of the performance, because I was imagining what I was feeling when I wrote that piece. It's really interesting to do. I mean, I've always composed music, but it's just in the last 5 years that suddenly my compositions have started to be played all over the place. And more and more I'm hearing my own compositions come back. And I'm getting used to it, but I'm not arrogant about it. I'm thrilled with it. So thank you for playing my piece, and I thought you did a really lovely job on it. So, one thing I really liked about your performance, you were nervous. And your nervousness, you could feel it coming across. You know what? You just kept going. You did exactly the right thing. When you're nervous, shut up and keep going. Frank Zappa, the great American composer, rock musician, social iconoclast, weirdo. Other things you could say about Zappa. I saw Zappa play a lot when I was doing my undergraduate degree in Vancouver. And we had a massive jazz club, and we used to get Zappa and the Mothers every year to play in our jazz club. And it was like for about 500 people. It was a very intimate concert because we had so much money to spend because it was a huge university. And I got a great respect for his music and for the way that it works. But Zappa's last album before he died was called Shut Up and Play Your Guitar. And I think often I should have that over my door because I could use it to talk less. But you know what? It's the critical thing is you did. You didn't stress about it. Well, you were stressed inside, but you shut up and played your guitar. I loved it. I thought you did a really good job at keeping going, and well done to everybody. If you were feeling sick with nerves, and everybody kept going, no matter what. So that was a really good thing. Another good reason to do these events. So great composure even on the stumbles. Lovely clear sound on your chords in the middle section. I don't know if you rumbled it, but the piece is about a journey. Setting sail, you set off out of the harbour and it's all calm, and then you come around the headland and suddenly you're in the full face of the wind at sea. And if any of you are sailors, you know that feeling when suddenly it hits you and the boat just tears off with no sound, and there's this, well, except the howling of the wind in the sails. And so that middle section, you picked it up like that. Do you know what? Even Trinity's official demonstrator missed that. And when you go on YouTube, if you look at this piece, you'll find that the guy who did it put a drum machine on and played straight through at the same tempo. Duh. Wrong. He would have failed. So you spotted the tempo change, which I really liked. And your performance had everything there to be a very, very nice performance. You're that close to it. You may have felt like death and felt nervous and apprehensive about it, but you're very, very close to overcoming that because you kept going. So, there's a terrible thing about it. We're taught in our society that arrogance is a bad thing. If somebody says you're arrogant, it's not a positive comment, is it? It is something that is generally considered bad. Well, do you know what? As a performer in music, if somebody says you're arrogant, you say thank you. Because you have to be. Why else would we do this? Why else would I think to talk to you? I think I've got something to say. I'm arrogant to say anything about that. Doesn't mean I don't stop and learn and listen from what people say about me. But I've got this performing arrogance to get up and talk about you performing. Well, you've got to have that too. And you're very close to it. So, nicely done, well spotted on the tempo change, beautiful chords, and some lovely sounds coming out of the chords. Okay, Alex. And we've got, Nick Pauslin's piece. Nick is a great, now I know Nick because he's the editor for Trinity, for whom I wrote the music that she played. And Nick is a very garrulous individual. He talks a bit too much, like me as well. But this is a lovely little piece. Got a real blues thing going, doesn't it? Yeah, really, really nice. So you see, you got that with a very nice groove. You had that bluesy kind of feel. Not totally consistently. There were places where it kind of broke down. You could have done a bit more attitude. You're a bit more arrogance, if you want to put it that way. Yeah, you're good at what you do. You play well. Go for it. You don't have any reason to be hesitant on this. So the way that you just skated over a couple of memory slips and you just kept going, great. That's a good performer. There's no performer alive who hasn't had memory slips. And the worst thing is that when if you have a memory slip, it's to stop. Well, that's the worst thing because the minute you stop, the music's over. That's okay. I'll use my rock musician from California analogy again. Jim Morrison, When the Music's Over. That's a dark, deep song. So keep it in your mind. When the music's over, that's what happens if you stop, which you didn't. So well done. It's a really good performance. If I had a technical bit of advice for you, I'd say develop a sense of legato. So even when you're playing riffs, boom, 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 in the bass, that you can play them dee da dee 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 or da 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 da. It's your choice. Don't always play staccato on a riff, even if you're hitting it hard. So you get a kind of more musical expression, and you can contrast staccato and legato in the piece. And that's one way you could take that piece forward. But basically, you're a good performer. It's gonna go well. So keep going. Okay, and Joseph, you know, this Catalan piece, where is he? There he is. The Catalan, oh no, hold it, you're not. Where's, you're Joseph, right. Right, okay, sorry. The Catalan music is incredibly poignant because it's so deeply melodic, but it also has a very, very simple basis. Have you ever heard of what a musette is? Does anybody know the term musette? Well, musette is an interesting thing because it's a type of piece. It's a piece that has a drone. And this Catalan piece had a drone, didn't it? You droned in the bass, yeah. But it's also a physical musical instrument. A musette is like a little single reed bagpipe. And you know how the bagpipes work? Well, a single pipe bagpipe, you just drone, and you've got very little you can do with it. It just drones away, and so musettes as a piece, they tend to drone, and they tend to have repeated melodic material that comes back over and over again. They're very beautiful. My wife Mary plays the viola da gamba, which is an ancient French instrument, sort of like a cello, but it's got frets like a proper instrument. And in the viola da gamba repertoire, they have loads and loads of these musettes because it's ancient French music. And the musette was a Catalan and accordingly French instrument that existed in the border area on the Mediterranean there. So it's an interesting thing to have a piece that actually represents an instrument. So I thought in the Catalan song, there was a lovely projected tune over the drone. I thought it was really beautiful, the way you did that, and I put musette style. So go for a real sense of drive in the piece, because it's a repeated thing, and it's got that bagpipe sort of slightly primitive side. You can actually hit it harder and go for it more rhythmically, and at the same time do what you did really beautifully, was to project the tone over top of the bass, which I thought you did really beautifully. May I say, well done on taking a bow. Yeah, we're going to hear more about that. If you're unlucky, we're going to practice it and see how we go. Okay, so that's the end of that. Well, now this is really difficult because those are a couple of really strong performances in that. But Pajali, I had to give it to you because I thought you really understood the music at a deep level. So you're the winner of that class. Okay, how am I doing for time? Lots of time. Okay. You mean I can talk more? Great. Okay, let's deal with It Smells Like Teen Spirit. Where is he?
He's gone.
Oh, he disappeared. I can't talk to him. Why is he scared?
No, he's got an exam watch.
Oh, right, okay. Okay, I'll tell you what I think about this
I'm
performance.
his teacher, so you can tell me.
I'll tell you. Well, I really like the piece, and I have an anecdote, I'm afraid. I haven't done many of them yet. I've done a little one about the composer. I didn't tell you why he was living back his car much. But this one, Nirvana, I have performed this piece with an orchestra. And it was an unusual orchestra. It was called the Ukulele Orchestra of Great Britain. And I don't know if you've ever seen them, they're really famous. They're a big money band. They make a fortune in live performance. If you get them to come and play at your school, you're talking 10,000 quid to get them. They're a big money band, the Ukulele Orchestra. It's run by George and, Kitty died last year actually, it was George and Kitty. And I played with them once. We recorded 2 songs. One of them was this one, It Smells Like Teen Spirit, and the other one was the old Mamas and Papas, California Dreamin'. And we did that one live on TV, or it was recorded, it wasn't live, and we were miming, so it really wasn't live. But we did it on TV, and I was astonished how having it on ukuleles changed my view of Nirvana. Who would think the ukulele had anything to do with Nirvana? Because there's Nirvana, one of the most attitude-filled bands in history. You know what Nirvana did? They wrote really good tunes. And you can sing them all, can't you? Come As You Are, what a beautiful tune. Or It Smells Like Teen Spirit. And you've got that middle section that you were playing, or he was playing, that was so successful with the long sustained lines. And the chords going underneath it. boom, boom. You get that long sustained melodic section, and da 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 dum, ba da da do do. What a great melody, goosebumps. So I really think this was a good song, and it came off well. You know, I would say that your student he could experiment with doing the old single end valve trick of controlling the tone via the guitar, because I thought there was lots of opportunity for tone contrast. And just because the drive was set full or pretty high up on the amp, didn't mean he couldn't have actually done something with it. I would have been telling him to go into that. In the same, just this single end valve thing, back in the 50s and 60s, when some of us were alive, you controlled your electric guitar, not by pedals like you do now, or not by switches on the amp, but by how loud your guitar was. Because the amp didn't do anything, all it did was get loud. And the louder it got, the worse it sounded. So of course, it didn't take people long to discover that if you cranked it up full, it sounded really evil, which was great. And that was the sound people wanted. But you couldn't do anything in stage. You couldn't run back to the amp and turn it down when you wanted a better tone. You had to do it with your guitar. And so when you look back at the early players from the early 60s, they're all running straight into the amp. There's no pedals. And they're all controlling the tone as well as the volume from the volume control. And we call that single-ended valve technology. There's usually only one tube in the valve, and you've got to turn it off and on with your volume control. That's a great musicianly technique. So I was thinking he could have done a bit more of that in this. Nice vibrato at the end of the solo. Well taught. I feel like now I'm adjudicating the teacher. It's a bit rough on me, actually.
John can play the song as well.
I think he can, yeah.
He plays Teen Spirit as well.
Okay, when you're thinking about Teen Spirit, have a think about this. So, a couple of things from that then. First, what a good song almost everything off the album Nevermind is. It's such good songwriting, that album. What a great tragedy that Kurt Cobain was lost so young, like Hendrix. And what a lot you can do with this song to bring out the music in it. There was one thing I was going to say to Joe, is to connect more with the audience. Because you know, when he finished, you could have looked at the audience, could have taken a bit of a nod. You don't have to do a formal style bow when you're playing Nirvana, seems a bit out of place. But you know, connecting with an audience is always good. Okay, so there's some ideas on that. Right, okay. Jean, which? Is he? That's you. Is it Jean or Jean?
Jean.
Jean, good, I was right. Thank you. You know, if you ever get stuck, here's a hint for you. If you get stuck on stage and your guitar's out of tune or it has a broken string or something has to be done, what you do is you talk to the audience and you cover it up a bit. And you know, it's actually a real performance thing, because a real disaster can happen, like breaking a string. There was a famous example of Eric Clapton breaking a string in a concert called The Last Waltz in 1975. The Last Waltz was a concert by a group called The Band. They were Bob Dylan's backing band for many, many years. They were on the road consistently for 30 years as a band. They played so much. They were there at all the famous events. And their last concert was called The Last Waltz, and they invited all their friends along, one of whom was Eric Clapton. And it was a big thing. Martin Scorsese was making a film of it, which became a really big hit film. It was in the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, which is a very famous venue. And Clapton comes on, is in the middle of his solo, and snaps a string. Well, Robbie Robertson, the guitarist for the band, stepped up and finished the solo note for note. It was Layla, of course, so he knew what the solo should go like. Whilst Eric Clapton got the string repaired, got another guitar, and came in, and then seamlessly came back in. And the whole broken string episode became almost like a feature of the performance, rather than something that was a disaster. So if you find, number one, I would say, you know, get a handle on tuning your guitars. But if you are in a situation where your roadie is tuning for you, and it's good you had a roadie, I've never had one of those, you could talk to the audience. You could say, well, I bet Angus Young never had this happen to him. I bet his guitarist never had to, his roadie never had to tune his guitars for him. You know, you could have a laugh with the audience. And that just aids and abets the performance. So, I put here really nice combination of rhythmic work and a musical work between the chords and the picking. That was really nice. It's hard to do, to actually play chords and pick them out at the same time. And I thought that worked really, really well. Sorry, you're not. Hold it. Yeah, you are, John. Yeah. Good shot at the solo. Yeah, well done on that. Work on those. Yeah, because that's, a real mark of a guitarist, to be able to play a solo. And one thing I would consider, and maybe this is something you could discuss with your teacher, is on chords like G, C, and D, where you're playing them open string, if you could find a way of playing them on a covered string, it would give you more control over the tone, especially when you're overdriving. So for example, a C chord can just be three strings, 4th string, 3rd string, and 2nd string on the 5th fret. And you get a second inversion C major chord, really tight, good rock chord. Mark Knopfler uses that all the time in his playing in Dire Straits. He uses tight little chords. And then you control the overdrive. Whereas if you were at big volume, like if you had a Marshall stack and you played an open G chord, then it's really difficult to control what happens. So you might consider having a look at revoicing those open string chords as a way of controlling the overdrive. Yeah. Oh, that was a really good performance, and I love the way you controlled it, and you didn't let the thing at the beginning. The only reason I was thinking about talking to the audience is because that links with what I've said earlier about addressing your audience. Okay, Lucy. Right, playing Bach. Whoa, nice, liked it. Yeah, really, really good, strong. The gavotte was almost like a musette because you had that drone section in the middle. When the bass note just drones away and there's no chord change, then you go back to the theme of the section. Gavotte is usually, if you haven't ever played a gavotte, it's a dance that begins on beat 3. So, when you're counting in a gavotte, most times you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then begin on 1. You don't with a gavotte, you go 2, and then begin on 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, like that. It's a very particular dance in that respect. And I thought your confidence really brought across the nature of the music very nicely. The lovely drone section, very clear textures in all senses, in all 3 sections. And you performed. You smiled at me, you addressed, I was the audience, and that's a good thing. So anytime you're on stage, connect with your audience. No matter whether you like them or not, it doesn't matter. If you don't like them, hard luck. You have to like them when you're on stage, because that's your gig as musicians. And you did that really, really nicely. Okay, so I think that's the end of that class. Sorry, I've lost my place. Is there a prize? Did I do on this one? Winner grade 4, grade 5.
Then we have electric guitarists.
Yeah, right. Oh, is that? Oh, so I've done that already. Oh, so I shouldn't have talked to Lucy yet.
Yeah,
So I should have said either Joe or Jean wins. Let me just consult my notes and I'll tell you. There's a guitar. Jelly won that. Thanks, Joseph, Catalan, and Joe. Yeah. I gave it to Joseph.
Oh, right.
Yeah, for the prize. Did I not say that before?
No.
Sorry about that. I skated over it, made a mistake. See, there you go. I've made a mistake on stage. Yeah, Joseph, you're the winner of that class for the musicality of your Catalan folk song. Okay, now that leaves me with the singer-songwriters to talk about, and I'm correct, I don't award a prize here. I'm just going to talk about them. Yeah. Right, okay. Voice and guitar. Joseph. Oh, may I ask, language, the language?
It's in Chinese.
Is it Mandarin or Cantonese?
Mandarin.
It's Mandarin, okay. I was going to, you know what, I wish I trusted my judgment. You would have been impressed if I'd said that was Mandarin, wasn't it? Yeah, my wife speaks a little Mandarin, because she spent a long time as an examiner in China. And I was going to guess that it was Mandarin. Do you know, that's a very special opportunity for you to address a song to an audience in a foreign language. Because that gives you a chance to tell them what it's about. And that would have been a good thing to do. It's all about this connecting with the audience again. And I think that that's such an important feature. I was absolutely thrilled with your performance. I thought that when you came in with the vocals, after having delivered an instrumental introduction, that it was a lovely, lovely moment. So well done on really, really beautiful and really beautifully presented as well. So just take every opportunity to connect with your audience. And there's loads of examples of that, of performers delivering a song in a foreign language to their audience, whatever it is, French to English, Italian to everybody, or to Mandarin to us. It's a real opportunity for connection. One of the things, as an example of this, if you want to hear somebody who does this really well, listen to Bob Dylan, especially early Bob Dylan, when he was a folkie. And you'll hear him introduce the songs, sometimes in a very gruff, it's partially inaudible voice, which is part of his stage manner. But he talks to the audience about the material. I've only heard Dylan perform once live, and before the concert I wasn't a Dylan fan, and after the concert I was. And that was the huge change in my own feeling about his performance came from the communication in the performance that he had. It wasn't, well, it was partly the way he talked, but just the energy of it. So listen to Bob Dylan for a way to address, and any of those other early 60s folkies, they usually had a political point to make. Sometimes it was anti-war, the early Greenpeace era, all of the things that were happening in the 60s, and they talked about it and told their audience about this. So it's worth considering. Nice bow, and confident movement between the sections of the song. You had the instrumental, and then you had the vocal bit, and it was a strong sense of confidence on that. May I suggest getting off copy with the words as soon as possible. Memorize the song. Yeah, because the more from memory in a song, the better. And any vocal coach will tell you that. Great, very nice. And Louisa, singing a song confusingly called Miranda, but there's no relation.
It's by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yeah,
there's no name.
I was waiting with her for a minute.
I thought I should have said it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, Louisa, you've got a very confident stage manner. That was lovely. You smiled at me, you smiled at the rest of the audience, you engaged everybody all together. And no matter what happened, you were in with a good chance of really affecting them in performance because of that. So good, strong address I put here. You were rhythmic, you were confident, you were off copy, which is very good. There was a very nice contrast of staccato and legato in your accompaniment patterns. You didn't just play the same thing all the time, which is really nice as well. Because if there's one failing of traditional singer-songwriterism, is that very often the accompaniment is neglected and it can be unmusical because it's all about the lyrics. So it depends whether you're more a guitarist or more a singer. Of course, I'm more of a guitarist, so I tend to think about guitar lines. But I think that you really did some musical things with the lines there. Really nice voice. Love the change of dynamics. There was some really strong, pace them to the back wall type of dynamics in your performance, which was very successful. Yeah, possibly, I don't know how much time you spend working on your guitar skills, but if you want to listen to some singer-songwriters who are both very strong vocalists and very good guitarists, I would recommend doing so. The fact is that most of them are Canadian. Is no accident, I suppose. But there's a singer-songwriter called Bruce Cockburn. It's spelled like the port, Cockburn. And he's recorded 43 albums in 42 years. And I became a fan of his when I was younger than you. And he's just a fabulous guitarist who integrates the guitar the guitar and the voice are equal in the same way that they are in a song by John Dowland or any of the great Elizabethan songwriters. The lute and the voice are equal partners. Whereas in the Romantic and classical eras, we kind of lost that in a lot of, well, not the best writing, but in a lot of songs. The accompanist is just chunking chords, and then the singer does everything. When you get a great song, of course, like a Schubert or something like that, then it's different, and the parts interweave and support each other in different ways. But you could think more about your guitar accompaniment. Think of ways of varying the texture, having a more eloquent delivery in the accompaniment, and that would match your very striking voice. Yeah, Joni Mitchell's a good example of that. Oh, what do you know? She's Canadian as well. Yeah, singer-songwriter. It's just about a religion in Canada, so it's hard. But actually, I'll tell you somebody who is a great English songwriter. A friend of mine, unfortunately, just died a couple of years ago on his way to a gig. John Renbourn. And John Renbourn recorded intensively over 30 or 35 years, and his guitar playing is faultless. His vocal delivery is very good, and they weave together really beautifully. So have to think about that. Yeah. I think I've said enough. Told you I talked too much. Thank you very much for listening.